Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine walking into a meeting, sending a crucial email, or maybe just introducing yourself at a networking event and feeling, absolutely confident that every word you say or write strikes the perfect professional tone.
Hmm.
That's really our mission today. English is everywhere in the global workplace, right? It's the language for, well, everything from pitching new ideas to making deals internationally.
Absolutely. It's the default, really.
Right, coordinating projects, even just asking for a document across time zones. But here's the thing, and this is what we're diving into. Lots of people can communicate in English.
Sure. Functionally.
Exactly. But achieving truly professional, really impactful communication, that's a whole different skill set. It's nuanced.
It really is. It's more than just knowing the words, isn't it?
Mhm.
It requires a real understanding of the right words, the right tone.
And the cultural context, too. That's huge.
Oh, definitely. Getting that context right ensures your message isn't just, understood, but that it actually resonates, that it lands properly.
That's a great way to put it. Resonates.
And it's fascinating, I think, how often the real power lies in those subtle shifts in language. And like you said, a deep awareness of the cultural context. These aren't
Yes.
just minor details,
They feel fundamental.
They are. They're the bedrock, really, that elevates your communication, takes it from just functional to genuinely influential. So we're moving beyond just vocabulary lists today.
Right, not just memorizing phrases.
Exactly. Though vocab is foundational, of course.
Mm.
But we're aiming for mastering those finer points, those
Yeah.
polite nuances, the right levels of formality, all the things that dramatically shape how you're perceived professionally.
We're talking about the difference between just being understood and being genuinely respected.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Or the difference between just passing on information and actually building strong, lasting professional relationships. That's a critical distinction.
That's a fantastic point. I have often seen it myself, how just a small change in phrasing can completely alter the dynamic in a room, or even just in an email thread.
Hmm.
And let's be honest, for many of us, especially as learners navigating this complex landscape, there's that common worry, that nagging feeling about striking the wrong note.
Oh, absolutely. The anxiety is real.
Will I sound too casual when I need to be formal? Or maybe too direct, too blunt when a softer approach is needed?
Yeah, diplomatic is often key.
It feels like trying to navigate a maze without a map sometimes, doesn't it? Especially in
Oh,
those high-stakes situations like a negotiation or maybe drafting an email that could genuinely affect your career path.
mm.
You know exactly what you want to achieve, but the specific words, the tone, the structure, that can feel incredibly daunting.
It can. And that leads to those awkward silences, or worse.
Misinterpretations.
Exactly. Messages getting fundamentally misinterpreted.
Mhm.
And that can slow down career progress or even damage relationships you've worked hard to build.
So this challenge you're describing, knowing the what but struggling with the how, it brings up a really critical question, I think.
Which is,
Well, in a world just overflowing with information, advice, tips on professional development, how do you actually filter that? How do you distill the stuff that's truly actionable? The insights that empower you to communicate effectively, like right from day one.
that's the core issue, isn't it? Cutting through that information overload. Our goal today is exactly that. Get right to the core principles, the practical phrases you can actually apply immediately.
Good. Practical is key.
Yeah. And we don't just want to hand you a list of things to memorize. That's not really deep learning. We aim to help you understand the why behind these professional communication choices.
The reasoning.
Exactly. So you can adapt your approach intelligently to all sorts of dynamic business situations rather than
Right.
just, mechanically applying rules you learned somewhere.
Precisely. Okay, so today we're taking a deep dive into the very practical, but also, I think, profoundly impactful aspects of business English.
Hmm.
We'll cover everything from making that really stellar first impression with professional introductions
Crucial first step.
to confidently navigating those tricky conversations in meetings, disagreements, opinions, all that.
Yeah, that's a big one for many people.
And even mastering the art of crafting perfectly polite, but also persuasive emails.
Essential in today's world.
But we're not stopping there, right? We'll also zoom out a bit, explore those critical cultural nuances, the things that can literally make or break your professional interactions on a global stage.
That cultural piece is so often underestimated.
It really is. So it's a comprehensive approach, really. It's designed to equip you with the tools, the mindset, to feel truly at ease and, dare I say, powerful in any English-speaking business environment.
And by the end of this deep dive,
Mhm.
hopefully you won't just have like a mental list of phrases,
Yeah.
you'll have cultivated a deeper understanding.
Right.
A deeper understanding of the foundational principles. And that understanding, that's what truly empowers you to adapt, to innovate, and really thrive in all sorts of diverse English-speaking environments.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe.
Yeah, a significant shortcut, I'd say, to becoming well-informed in professional English, giving you those aha moments.
Yes.
Yeah, those moments that transform your confidence from just like hope into something tangible, a consistent competence you can rely on.
Excellent. Okay, let's jump right in. Our first big topic, mastering professional introductions, that crucial first impression formula. Right. So when you're introducing yourself in a business context, could be a new colleague, a potential client, someone at a conference you've never met. The common, maybe overly casual approach is often just, "Hi, I'm Alex." Simple enough.
Seems harmless.
It's harmless and maybe okay in a very informal social setting. But in a business context, it often falls short, doesn't it?
It really does. The core issue, I think, is that it lacks immediate context.
Exactly.
No context.
It doesn't give the other person enough information to quickly understand your role, your company, or, crucially, how you might connect professionally.
You're basically making them do the work of figuring you out. Yeah, instead of offering immediate value and clarity, to really make an impact, you need to offer a bit more substance right away, just a little bit more information.
So what's a better way?
Well, consider the powerful simplicity of something like, "Hi, I'm Alex, and I work in the marketing department at ABC Company."
Okay. Name, role, company.
Exactly. What's really effective there is how swiftly, how efficiently that structure establishes your professional identity, your affiliation.
Right. It gives them a frame of reference immediately.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Your name, your specific function, the organization you represent, it just provides that context, making it far easier for them to maybe ask a relevant follow-up question.
Or just remember you later.
Or recall your specific context later when they're sorting through all the new contacts they made. It's concise, it's professional, and critically, it's informative.
Right. Or another example. "Nice to meet you. My name is Lisa, and I'm a project manager at XYZ Tech."
Good one.
Now, you might notice a subtle difference there. "I'm Alex" versus "My name is Lisa."
Yeah, there is a slight difference in feel.
Both are perfectly fine, totally acceptable, but "My name is Lisa" can sometimes sound maybe slightly more formal.
I agree. It can carry a slightly more formal cadence. You might choose that specifically for certain environments where you want to touch more gravitas or a deliberate sense of composure.
Right, a bit more considered.
Indeed, that my name is.
Yeah.
Construction can definitely add a layer of deliberateness. It signals a more considered, more formal approach to the introduction.
So it implies you're intentionally presenting yourself with a bit more weight.
Yeah, maybe a bit more decorum, which can be particularly beneficial in, say, highly formal settings or maybe during initial high-stakes meetings like a big client pitch or meeting senior executives for the first time.
Project's composure and respect for the setting.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's introducing yourself. Let's flip it. How about responding politely when someone introduces themselves to you? This is just as important.
Equally important, absolutely.
We've all been there, maybe even done it a quick monosyllabic yes or a rushed "nice to meet you." That sounds a bit dismissive.
Yeah, muttered while looking away.
Right. These responses, while maybe not overtly rude, often lack warmth. They can leave the other person feeling just sort of acknowledged.
But not really engaged with?
Exactly. But you have a real opportunity here to elevate that initial interaction quite significantly.
You really do. And the key takeaway here is how profoundly a warm, genuine response can shape the entire interaction that follows.
So instead of just "nice to meet you,"
Well, when you use a phrase like, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Alex," you're doing so much more than just acknowledging their presence.
pleasure feels stronger.
It does. The word pleasure itself conveys genuine warmth, a positive feeling. It elevates the interaction beyond just, obligatory politeness.
So it signals respect, positive engagement.
Yes, and a welcoming, open tone. This can be particularly impactful in quickly building rapport. It suggests you're not just going through the motions, but are genuinely interested in making that connection.
Okay, it's a pleasure. I like that. What else?
Well, there's the ever-reliable "nice to meet you too, Lisa."
Ah, yes. Classic.
It's a solid, versatile option. It often serves as that foundational, polite response. Strikes a good balance, I think, between warmth and professionalism.
Not too over the top, not too cold.
Exactly. It's polite, it's clear, and it's universally understood across most professional settings. So it's a safe and effective choice when you want to be welcoming, but maybe maintain a slight professional distance initially.
Think of it like a verbal handshake.
That's a great analogy. It's like a firm, polite handshake, universally accepted, never misunderstood, just a gesture of acknowledgement and positive intent.
Provides a comfortable entry point for the conversation.
Precisely. Signifies you're receptive to further interaction without overstating any immediate familiarity.
Okay, makes sense. Now let's level up slightly. Networking events, larger professional gatherings. Beyond just that initial introduction and response, how do you keep the conversation flowing? And maybe more importantly, how do you show genuine interest in the other person? It's not just about saying who you are.
Right. It's about demonstrating sincere curiosity about them.
So what are some good ways to do that?
Well, a perfectly acceptable, very direct opener you'll hear all the time is, "So what do you do?"
Simple, direct.
Very straightforward. Its intent is immediately clear. Understand the other person's professional sphere quickly. It's efficient, gets you a quick overview of their role, their company.
Serves its purpose.
It does. Provides a clear pathway for them to share basic info. It's functional, maybe a little blunt for some tastes, but generally fine.
Okay, but what if you want to invite a more detailed response, something richer, show a deeper level of interest, maybe lead to a more meaningful chat?
Ah, right. In that case, you could opt for something like, "Tell me a little about your role at your company."
Tell me a little about... That feels more inviting.
It is. And a critical point to consider here is how you can subtly encourage someone to share more without sounding like you're prying or being intrusive.
Yeah, you don't want to sound like you're interrogating them.
Exactly. And that phrasing, "Tell me a little about your role," is an excellent example of that nuanced approach. It's an open-ended invitation.
Shifts it from just facts to more of a story.
Precisely. It signals a greater depth of interest than a simple, "What do you do?" It encourages the person to elaborate, maybe share some insights into their responsibilities, their challenges, perhaps even a bit about their professional journey.
And that gives you more to work with for the conversation.
Absolutely. More substantive material to build a truly engaging, memorable conversation, moving beyond just superficial pleasantries. It fosters connection by inviting them to share a part of their professional story.
That makes a lot of sense. So the key takeaway here for introductions is crystal clear, really.
Which is?
First impressions are built on clarity being easy to understand, genuine respect, showing interest in them, and having a demeanor that's professional but also approachable, friendly.
Well put. You're providing enough info to be understood, showing sincere interest, and setting a positive, inviting tone for whatever comes next.
Making it easy for them to engage with you.
Exactly.
Okay, next up. Let's tackle one of the areas that often feels like the highest pressure environment in professional communication meetings.
Ah, yes. The meeting room.
This is often where many learners feel the most pressure, right? To perform, contribute, navigate complex discussions.
Definitely. Lots of eyes on you, potentially.
And a common habit when you want to share your opinion is just starting with, "I think."
We all do it.
We all do it. And it's not inherently wrong, but sometimes it can sound a bit tentative, maybe even lessen the authority of what you're saying.
It can, yeah. It can sometimes hedge your bets a little too much. The goal is usually to convey confidence and conviction in your ideas while still being open.
So what are some stronger alternatives?
Well, when you use a phrase like, "In my opinion, we should focus on,"
Okay, in my opinion.
you are explicitly framing your statement as a considered viewpoint, not just a random thought, but something you've actually formed an opinion on.
So it invites discussion rather than just stating a fact?
Exactly. It invites discussion and consideration, rather than asserting something that might shut down dialogue. It's direct, it's polite, and it signals you're offering a carefully formed perspective, allows for that collaborative exploration.
Just the thoughtfulness. Okay, what else?
Another great one is, "I'd suggest that we."
I'd suggest that feels very constructive.
It is. Analyzing "I'd suggest" shows its power as a collaborative proposal. It's not a command, not an imperative.
It's an offering.
It's an offering of a way forward, inviting others to consider it, maybe align with it. Think about all the situations where this is useful.
Like proposing a new strategy.
Exactly. Or offering a solution during brainstorming. Or gently suggesting a change in direction for a project. Instead of a blunt, "We need to change the marketing plan."
Which sounds a bit dictatorial.
Right. You could say, "Given the recent market shifts, I'd suggest that we pivot our marketing strategy towards, say, a younger demographic." It positions your idea as a collaborative step, fostering buy-in, not resistance.
Makes sense. And then there was another one you mentioned in the outline, from my perspective.
Yes, from my perspective, I believe. This one is really interesting because of its inclusivity.
How so?
Well, the broader implication here is how, from my perspective, allows you to state a strong conviction, a strong belief.
But acknowledges others might see it differently.
Precisely. It inherently acknowledges that others may have different viewpoints, and that's crucial in collaborative environments where you want diverse ideas. It makes your statement more inclusive, significantly less confrontational.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine you're discussing potential bottlenecks in a project. You might say, from my perspective, I believe the biggest challenge right now lies in scaling our current infrastructure.
Okay, clear statement of belief.
Yes, but it simultaneously opens the door for colleagues to share their perspectives on the same challenge. Maybe someone else thinks the bottleneck is training or communication. It invites a richer, multifaceted discussion.
Promotes intellectual humility without weakening your point.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it.
Okay, so that's sharing opinions. What about agreeing? We need to agree sometimes.
Hopefully often.
But the pitfall here is often just a simple, maybe unenthusiastic yes, or a quick nod while you're looking at your notes.
Yeah, the drive-by agreement.
Right. You want to show genuine agreement, active engagement, make the other person feel really heard and validated. That strengthens team dynamics, doesn't it?
Massively. So instead of just yes, consider something like, I completely agree with you.
Adding completely makes a difference.
It does. The power in that word, completely, is immense. It adds emphasis, conviction, leaves no doubt about your alignment. It's much more than a casual nod. It's a full endorsement of their point.
Which probably feels good to the person who made the point.
Absolutely. It validates their insight, encourages them to contribute more. It's empowering.
What about something simpler, like, that's a great point?
Deceptively simple, but remarkably effective.
Why is it so good?
Because it not only signifies agreement, but more importantly, it actively validates the other person's contribution. It acknowledges the quality of their insight, their effort.
So it fosters positive team dynamics.
Directly. Imagine a colleague shares a really complex analysis. Your response, that's a great point, I hadn't considered it from that angle, builds instant rapport. It encourages more insightful contributions across the whole team. It turns agreement into active appreciation.
Nice. Okay, and what if you agree, but you also want to add something, build on their idea?
Ah, the yes and approach. A fantastic phrase for this is, I see your point, and I'd like to add.
Okay, break that down. Why does it work?
It's a masterclass in active listening and constructive collaboration. First part, I see your point.
Shows you listened.
Exactly. Demonstrates you've listened carefully, absorbed their point, builds that bridge of understanding. Then the and I'd like to add part gracefully lets you introduce your own supplementary insight.
Makes the discussion richer.
Totally. Moves beyond simple agreement to collective problem solving. For instance, I see your point about the budget constraints this quarter, and I'd like to add that maybe we could explore grant opportunities for next year to offset those costs.
Yeah.
You're not just confirming, you're contributing directly to the solution, building on it.
Very powerful. Okay, now for the big one. The one many people dread.
Disagreeing.
Disagreeing. How do you do it without being confrontational, disrespectful, rude? That instinct to just blurt out, no, that's wrong, can be strong sometimes.
Especially if you feel strongly.
But it's almost never productive in a professional setting, is it? It just shuts down dialogue instantly.
Almost guaranteed to. So instead of that blunt negation, which feels like an attack, consider the impact of something like, I see your point, but I have a slightly different perspective.
Okay, let's dissect that. I see your point.
That validates immediately. Signals you've heard them, understood them, disarms potential defensiveness right away.
Okay.
The but signals the difference, clearly. But then I have a slightly different perspective that softens the disagreement considerably.
Presents it as an alternative view, not a direct refutation.
Precisely. An alternative angle. It maintains that professional rapport, keeps the conversation open, constructive. For example, if a colleague suggests a timeline that seems totally unrealistic.
Instead of no way.
Right. You might diplomatically say, I see your point on aiming for a 2-week turnaround, but I have a slightly different perspective on the resources required, which might unfortunately extend that closer to 3 weeks. See the difference?
Huge difference. Much more collaborative. What's another option?
Another really useful, respectful one is, that's an interesting idea, but I think we should also consider.
Starting with, that's an interesting idea. That's key, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. It immediately shows respect for their contribution, acknowledges their effort, their thought, even if you don't fully agree. That initial validation is vital.
And then but I think we should also consider.
That introduces the alternative while keeping the tone consultative. It's not about shutting down their idea. It's about expanding the discussion, exploring other angles, inviting a more comprehensive view.
So you're saying your idea has merit, but let's look at the bigger picture together.
Exactly. For example, that's an interesting idea to target a completely new market segment, but I think we should also consider the potential regulatory hurdles in that region before we commit significant resources. It's additive thinking, not subtractive.
Good distinction. Okay, one more way to disagree politely.
A very direct, yet still polite way to introduce a counter-argument is, I understand what you're saying, but I believe.
Similar structure. Start with understanding.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Builds that critical bridge of comprehension. Shows you've processed their argument, you're not dismissing it out of hand. Then, but I believe, allows you to present your counter-argument as a conviction, a well-reasoned stance, not a personal attack.
So this raises that important question again. How do you maintain rapport while introducing a counter-argument?
And these phrases are masterclasses in doing just that. They allow for rigorous intellectual debate without letting disagreement descend into personal animosity. Imagine discussing project priorities.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying about prioritizing Project A for immediate revenue, but I believe Project B, though longer term, has a stronger strategic advantage for securing future market share. You state your belief clearly but respectfully.
Excellent examples. Before we leave meetings, what about asking questions? It's not just about opinions and agreement-disagreement.
Oh, absolutely. Asking the right questions in the right way is such a powerful tool for engagement.
How so?
Well, instead of just pointing out a problem, you might ask a clarifying question like, could you elaborate on the potential risks associated with that approach?
Shows engagement, critical thinking.
Exactly. Not just challenging. Or, to probe deeper maybe, what data led us to that conclusion? Seeking evidence, but politely, not accusatorially.
Nice. Any others?
Another great approach is opening up possibilities. Have we considered alternative solutions that might address, say, the customer retention issue more directly? Invites broader thinking.
And the language is key, using could, have we considered.
Always. It fosters that environment of shared exploration, not interrogation. Keeps it collaborative.
Fantastic. So the big takeaway from this whole meeting section seems to be, well, it's about contributing thoughtfully, fostering genuine collaboration, and meticulously maintaining respect, even when you strongly disagree.
That sums it up perfectly. Building ideas together, refining strategies through constructive dialogue, and making sure every voice feels valued, even in disagreement.
Okay, let's switch gears now from spoken words in meetings to the written word, specifically business emails.
The digital domain.
Right. In today's world, emails are so often the main written record of our professional interactions. And their tone, their clarity, their professionalism, it impacts perception significantly.
Hugely. It's your digital footprint.
And many learners, I find, grapple with finding that balance, that sweet spot between being too direct, sounding abrupt or demanding, and maybe being too polite, which can sometimes seem unconfident or vague or just indirect.
It's a fine line to walk.
It really is. And that balance is critical because your email tone can influence so much how quickly you get a response, whether your request gets prioritized, even how colleagues and clients see your overall professionalism, your attention to detail.
You're absolutely right. Emails aren't just messages. They are, like you said, digital fingerprints of your professional self. They're often the first contact.
A record of decisions.
A reflection of your organizational culture, even. A well-crafted email. It can speed things up, build goodwill, reinforce your reputation as someone meticulous and respectful.
Whereas a bad one?
A poorly worded or discourteous email can create unnecessary friction, misunderstandings, maybe even damage crucial relationships. It truly is a delicate balance. Conciseness, clarity, and courtesy all have to work together.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. Polite greetings. There's definitely a spectrum of formality here, isn't there? Choosing the right one sets the tone immediately.
There absolutely is. For formal emails, especially if it's your very first contact with someone.
Or you're writing to someone senior.
Exactly. Or external partners you don't know well. Dear Mr. Johnson or Dear Mrs. Patel isn't just appropriate. It's often essential.
Sets a respectful, official tone.
Immediately. It's universally accepted in formal business contexts. Removes any ambiguity about the professional, serious nature of your communication. Think of it as the default for unknown recipients or very important sensitive messages.
Also applies if you know their title, like Dear Dr. Lee or Dear Director Chen.
Precisely. Using the correct title shows respect.
Okay, but what about once you've built some rapport? Or maybe the company culture is just less formal. Can you switch to something like, Hi, Lisa?
Yes, absolutely. But this is where it gets interesting, right? What's truly eliminating here is how that choice of greeting immediately signals the perceived relationship and the expected level of formality.
So, hi first name is okay sometimes.
It's perfectly appropriate and very common once you have an established working relationship or you're operating within a more casual, collaborative, professional environment. But, and this is a big but,
Be careful.
exercise caution. Never use this for initial contact with someone you don't know, especially someone very senior or in a very traditional industry. The transition from Dear Mr. M's to Hi First Name should ideally follow cues you get from their communication style.
Or match the company culture.
Or be consistent with the established company culture and internal norms. Getting this wrong can accidentally imply familiarity that isn't earned yet or might even be culturally inappropriate.
Good point. Okay. After the greeting, you need to state your reason for writing, clearly, concisely,
Respecting their time.
but politely, avoiding abruptness or demanding language.
Exactly. So for instance, when you write, I'm writing to follow up on,
Okay, follow up on.
the phrase follow up is super efficient. It implies there was previous communication, a shared understanding, an ongoing matter. Makes your email immediately contextual, purposeful.
Example.
I'm writing to follow up on our discussion yesterday about the new project proposal and to confirm the next steps. It's direct, but it acknowledges that prior interaction shows continuity. Great for reinforcing accountability or just keeping a project moving.
Okay. What if it's something a bit softer, less urgent? Maybe just checking in.
Then I wanted to check in regarding is a really good choice.
Feels less demanding than follow-up.
It is. Check-in is inherently softer, more consultative, conveys a less demanding tone, excellent for status updates, gentle reminders, or when you're asking about something that isn't super time sensitive. I wanted to check in regarding the status of the vendor contract and see if you require any further information from my end. It's proactive, but polite. Keeps communication lines open without putting on too much pressure. Helps maintain that collegial feel.
Nice. And if you're actually making a request, asking for information.
Then framing it with, I'd like to request some information about, is far, far better than any demanding imperative.
Avoids send you the data.
Definitely avoid that. I'd like to request is polite, specific, and impeccably clear. Avoids demanding language entirely. Frames your need as a courteous request, not an order.
Connects to the bigger picture of respecting their time.
Absolutely. These opening lines are fundamentally about respecting the recipient's time and autonomy while clearly communicating your intent. So instead of that terse, send me the data, you'd write, I'd like to request some information about the latest sales figures, specifically regarding Q2 performance. Sets a collaborative, respectful tone right from the start.
Increases the chance of a positive response.
Significantly. Shows you value their contribution and their time.
Okay, greetings, opening lines. What about closing the email? Just as crucial, right? Your last chance to leave a polite impression goes beyond just typing thanks.
Way beyond thanks in many professional contexts. A simple, genuine, and highly effective option is, I appreciate your help.
Direct gratitude.
Yeah, always well received. Directly acknowledges the effort or assistance, whether it's already provided or anticipated, reinforces a positive relationship, encourages future cooperation. A sincere, professional thank you.
What if you're waiting for a reply or some action from them?
Then looking forward to your response is an excellent way to close without sounding impatient or demanding.
Creates an expectation politely.
Exactly. It's subtle but powerful. Yeah. Creates a clear expectation for a reply or action without being pushy. It's anticipatory, polite. Signals you expect and welcome their feedback or action. Encourages them to get back to you in a timely way. Conveys continued engagement.
Good one. And then the go-to standard professional closing.
Best regards, your name.
The reliable workhorse.
It really is. This raises that important question. How do you end an email both politely and effectively across almost any professional context? Best regards is your answer most of the time.
Standard, universally appropriate.
Yep. Suitable for almost any business context. Initial contact, ongoing chats. Contrast it with more casual closing like thanks or cheers, or even just your initial.
Those can be okay sometimes, though.
They can be, but only in very specific informal settings or with people you know very well and have that established casual rapport with. They might be too informal for initial emails, formal context, or recipients you don't know well. Best regards maintains that consistent level of professionalism right to the end.
Are there other good options besides best regards?
Sure. Sincerely is a bit more formal, often used in very official correspondence. Kind regards is slightly less formal than best regards, often good for ongoing relationships where there's warmth. And simply thank you works well if the entire email was purely a request for something.
Lots of options, but best regards is the safe bet.
Generally, yes.
Okay, so the key takeaway for emails. Every single part matters. Subject line, greeting, body, tone, closing it all contributes to your professional image. Politeness is paramount, but it needs that balance with clarity, conciseness, efficiency.
Crafting your professional voice on paper, that's the goal.
All right, let's get into some really actionable do's and don'ts now. These apply pretty much across the board to your everyday business communication meetings, emails, chats, practical tips for immediate improvement.
Let's do it, the practical stuff.
Let's start with the do's. Best practices for professionalism. What's do number one?
Do number one, speak clearly and confidently. And what's truly remarkable here, even the most perfectly phrased sentence, the best vocabulary, it loses so much impact if it's delivered hesitantly.
Mumbled, maybe.
Mumbled or in a monotone. Confidence amplifies clarity. It gives weight, authority to your words. It's not just what you say, it's profoundly about your vocal delivery.
Articulation, pace, volume.
All of it. A clear, steady, audible voice projects authority, conviction, professionalism. Makes your message resonate far more effectively. Imagine explaining a complex new policy. If you mumble or rush, even if the info is right, the message gets diluted. Comprehension suffers.
So practice delivery too. Okay, do number two. We touched on this, but it's worth hammering home. Use polite phrases, like could you please, instead of direct commands like give me.
Absolutely fundamental. Cannot stress this enough for a collaborative, respectful workplace. The imperative form, give me the report now, it sounds demanding, authoritative in a bad way, maybe even aggressive.
Leaves no room for the other person.
Exactly. But the interrogative form, could you please, it actively invites cooperation, frames it as a question, gives the other person a choice, makes them feel respected, which massively increases their willingness to help.
The difference is huge, isn't it?
Immense. Give me the report now.
Yeah.
Versus, could you please send me the report when you have a moment? Think about the impact on team dynamics, the likelihood of a positive response, your overall professional rapport. Tiny syntax change, monumental impact shift.
Applies to asking for help, delegating.
Anything. Would you be able to take care of X is always, always better than do X. Always.
Got it. Okay, essential Sadie. Do number three. Listen carefully and respond professionally. Sounds obvious, maybe.
Sounds obvious, but true active listening. It's a skill many overlook or don't practice enough.
What does active listening really mean here?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, active listening is the bedrock of all effective communication. It's not just passively hearing words bounce off your ears.
Yeah.
It's diligently trying to understand the speaker's deeper meaning, their intent, their underlying concerns, maybe even their emotional state.
So you can tailor your response?
Precisely. When you listen actively, you can then tailor your professional responses appropriately, show you genuinely value their input. That cultivates trust and respect. For example, a client describes a complex problem. Truly listening lets you not only offer a solution, but also acknowledge their frustration or concern.
Builds trust and rapport.
Profoundly. Your response becomes a bespoke solution to their specific problem and emotional state, not just a generic answer. Much more impactful. Shows empathy and strategic thinking.
Okay, those are three powerful do's. Now for the don'ts. The common pitfalls that can really undermine your professionalism, even if you mean well. Number one.
Don't use too much slang. Saying, hey dude, what's up? In a client meeting. Probably not a good idea.
Probably not. Why is slang so problematic in business?
Several crucial reasons. First, it can be easily misunderstood, especially across different cultures or generations. What's common slang in one place or age group might be totally foreign or even accidentally offensive elsewhere.
Creates confusion.
And second, it often just sounds unprofessional. Can signal a lack of seriousness, lack of attention to detail, maybe lack of respect for the formality of the business setting.
Right.
Creates an unnecessary barrier.
Even in more relaxed workplaces.
Even there. While some modern, relaxed places might embrace some informality, it's always safer, always more widely accepted, to err on the side of formality. especially with external partners, clients, superiors. It's about code switching, adapting your language to the context. And in business, formal English is generally the default code.
Good advice. Okay, number 2, don't be too direct or blunt. We talked about give me, but the example here is instead of I need this now,
Right, which sounds incredibly or maybe panicky.
opt for something like, could you send this to me by the end of the day?
Yes, this just reiterates that vital concept, the art of softening requests, delivering information politely. I need this now implies urgency, which might be real, but it sounds aggressive. Demanding. Dismissive of the other person's workload breeds resentment.
Whereas the alternative,
Could you send this to me by the end of the day? It's equally clear about your deadline, but it masterfully frames it as a polite request with a specific time frame. Assertive without being abrasive. Maintains professionalism, respect for their autonomy, shows you value their time and help.
applies to more than just requests too, right? Like feedback.
Absolutely. Instead of your report has errors, maybe try. I've reviewed the report, and I'd like to suggest a few areas for refinement, perhaps. Clear, but not cutting.
Okay. And finally, number 3, don't ignore small talk. This is a big one, I think.
It really is, especially for learners from cultures that really prioritize directness and efficiency. They might see it as wasted time.
But in many, many business cultures, starting an interaction with a polite greeting, a brief, friendly question, it's essential for building relationships.
It absolutely is. And this raises that important question. What role does seemingly unrelated conversation actually play in professional success?
And the answer is,
The answer is profound. It's often the crucial bridge. The bridge to building trust and stronger working relationships. Small talk isn't wasted time. It's an indispensable social lubricant.
finds common ground, builds rapport.
Yes. Shows colleagues or clients as individuals, not just transactions. Think about examples. How was your weekend? Did you catch the game? Traveling for the holidays soon? Any plans for the long weekend?
Humanizes the interaction.
Creates a comfortable atmosphere, builds that foundational connection, which then makes the more substantive business discussions much smoother, more productive. In many cultures, jumping straight into business without this social preamble is considered abrupt, rude even.
It's the art of connecting before doing business.
Precisely. It's a subtle but vital art.
Okay, so the key takeaway for this section, professionalism is really in the details. The phrases you choose, how you deliver them, your awareness of social cues. Small, intentional changes in these areas can make a huge difference in how effectively you communicate and how positively you're perceived. Okay, now, here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, absolutely crucial.
The cultural layer.
Exactly, because while all the English phrases we've discussed are undeniably important, understanding the cultural context, the context in which those phrases are used, and maybe more importantly, interpreted, that is critical.
It's the make or break factor often.
Right. Business English isn't this single uniform thing. It's a living language that adapts, shifts profoundly across different global cultures, like a chameleon changing colors.
That's a great image. And what's truly striking here is how deeply culture just permeates and influences communication styles. It's not just what you say,
But how it's said.
and how it's interpreted by the listener through their own cultural lens. A perfectly polite phrase in one culture might land completely differently elsewhere. Weak, maybe? Overly formal. Even inadvertently rude.
So this extra layer, this cultural intelligence,
That's what genuinely transforms your communication. From just functional to profoundly effective, impactful, respectful on a global stage. It's the difference between being heard and being truly understood and valued.
Okay, let's dive into some specific examples. Let's start with the United States. We mentioned directness earlier. In American workplaces, direct communication is generally valued, right? Often surprisingly so compared to other places.
Generally, yes. People are often encouraged to share opinions openly, even up the chain of command. It's often framed in the spirit of efficiency, transparency.
So you might hear something quite direct.
You might. For instance, in a U.S. meeting, an employee might confidently state, "I strongly believe this approach will significantly increase our sales by 20% next quarter." There's a high cultural value placed on clear, assertive opinions, even if they challenge the status quo.
Focuses on logical argument. Data.
Often, yes. Contributing constructively. This directness is often seen as efficient, honest, transparent, prioritizing clarity over maybe subtle nuance. It reflects what anthropologists call a low-context culture, where meaning is mostly in the explicit words, not hidden cues.
But as we also touched on, even with that directness, Americans often use softeners to keep things polite, collaborative. It's a bit of a paradox.
It is a fascinating balancing act, direct but agreeable. So you'll frequently hear phrases alongside that directness like, I think we might want to consider another strategy. Or, would it be possible to adjust the timeline slightly?
Softening the edges.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture of U.S. communication, that directness is often mitigated by these softeners, specifically to foster an environment of open yet respectful dialogue. They signal flexibility, willingness to collaborate, respect for others' input.
Ensures direct feedback doesn't feel too aggressive.
Precisely. They act as that crucial social cushion, allows candor without causing unnecessary offense. This is a really important nuance to grasp.
And small talk. You mentioned it's not just common, but often expected in the U.S. before meetings kick off.
Very much so. Light conversation about weekends, hobbies, sports, trips. Examples like, did you catch the game last night? Or, how was your trip to New York?
What's the function there? Just killing time.
Not at all. It underscores the vital social function of small talk in the U.S. It's a social lubricant. Breaks the ice, finds common ground, shared interests. Fundamentally, it establishes a human connection before you get down to the business agenda.
Builds rapport, creates a comfortable atmosphere.
Which then, paradoxically, makes the business discussion smoother, more productive. It's rarely seen as wasted time. It's an essential, often unwritten part of relationship building. Ignoring it can make you seem aloof, maybe even rude. Hinders relationship development.
Okay, U.S. direct but softened, values small talk. Let's contrast that sharply now with the United Kingdom. More indirect generally, but very polite.
Significantly more indirect, often. And yes, politeness is usually paramount. Direct confrontation is generally avoided in British business culture.
So instead of, that's wrong,
You're far more likely to hear very nuanced statements. Things like, I see your point, but I wonder if there's another way to approach this, or that's an interesting perspective, though we might need to consider another factor.
lots of qualifiers and softeners there.
Absolutely. These phrases are meticulously designed to allow for disagreement without appearing overtly confrontational. They value harmony, understated communication. It's about gently hinting at alternatives, subtly suggesting other considerations, rather than stating firm opposition. That could seem impolite or overly assertive.
Manifestation of subtlety and politeness, even when disagreeing.
Precisely, even in challenging situations.
And in emails. You mentioned British professionals often use very polite phrases that might sound almost too formal or lengthy to others.
They might, yes. You'll frequently see greetings like, I hope this email finds you well, or requests framed as, would you be so kind as to send me the report?
So kind as to definitely sounds quite formal.
It does. To someone from a more direct, low-context culture, it might seem lengthy, excessively formal, but these are quintessential hallmarks of British business communication. And this raises that interesting question. How does a culture manage to balance politeness with clarity?
British English seems to have mastered that balance.
It provides excellent examples. These phrases are deeply ingrained, universally seen as respectful, proper. They show high regard for the recipient and the formality of the exchange, even if they add a few extra words. It's a cultural emphasis on courtesy, tradition.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift continents. Japan. Huge emphasis on respect, hierarchy, and maintaining group harmony. Wow, right?
Wa is absolutely central, and that means you will very, very rarely, if ever, hear someone say a direct no.
Why is that?
Because a direct refusal is often seen as impolite, potentially aggressive. It can cause loss of face for either the person refusing or the person being refused. It disrupts harmony.
So instead of no,
They might employ incredibly indirect phrases, like, that might be a bit difficult, or we will think about it carefully, or perhaps, let me discuss this with my team,
which often means
no, or at least indicates significant obstacles. There are deep cultural reasons for this preserving harmony, showing deference, avoiding discomfort. These phrases allow for a gentle refusal or deferral without direct confrontation, without breaking that crucial social harmony.
So it's crucial for outsiders to learn to read between the lines.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
You need to understand that these indirect statements often signify a negative answer. This is a prime example of a high-context culture in action. Meaning is often derived from shared understanding, nonverbal cues, the relationship itself.
Not just the explicit words.
Right. In such environments, Being too direct can actually be seen as impolite because it assumes the other person lacks the context or subtlety to understand.
And what about business card etiquette? Meiji exchange. You said it's incredibly important, ritualized.
Profoundly important. Far more than just swapping contact details. It's a highly ritualized act signifying respect and the start of a professional relationship.
How does it work?
You use both hands to carefully present your card, text facing them so they can read it. You receive their card with both hands. You take a moment to look at it, read their name, title, maybe comment briefly.
Show you're paying attention.
Exactly. Then you place it respectfully on the table during the meeting, maybe in order of seniority. Critically, you never just stuff it in your pocket immediately or write on it in front of them.
Wow, it's a whole ceremony.
It really is. The whole act is a profound symbol of respect for the individual, for the relationship being established. Acknowledges their identity, status, treats them and their professional representation with utmost care. A ritualized demonstration of respect and serious intent lays the groundwork for trust.
Incredible detail. Okay, let's jump to France. Different vibe again. Appreciation for intellectual discussion, logical argument, even respectful debate.
Very much so. French professionals often genuinely enjoy rigorously debating ideas in meetings. It's generally not considered rude to challenge an idea,
As long as it's done respectfully.
provided it's done logically, with reasoned arguments, and with respect for the individual. You might hear things like, "I respectfully disagree, because based on our latest market data," or "That's an interesting approach, but have we carefully considered the long-term brand implications?"
So challenging ideas is seen as engagement.
Often, yes. A sign of intellectual engagement, critical thinking, not personal offense. If we connect this to the bigger picture, debating ideas is frequently how French professionals arrive at robust, well-vetted decisions. It's a process of refinement through constructive intellectual friction. They value rhetoric, the rigor of a well-argued point. It's about challenging the idea, not the person.
Important distinction. And what about business lunches in France? Common, but with specific etiquette.
Very common, and yes, vital etiquette nuances. A significant one is that discussing serious business before the meal ends is sometimes considered impolite.
Really? Why is that?
French culture places a high value on gastronomy, the pleasure of the meal, and social interaction as a means of building rapport. People take their time, savor the food, the conversation. This raises that key question again. How do different cultures draw the line between social interaction and formal business?
In France, the table is a bridge.
A crucial social bridge. The lunch itself is an important ritual, designed to build rapport, trust, personal connection, business discussions, typically reserved for after the main course, maybe over coffee, or once a certain level of social comfort and camaraderie is established.
Prioritizes relationship building before the transaction.
Exactly. It shows the relationship aspect is valued and given its due before diving into purely business matters. It's an investment in the relationship itself.
Fascinating how different these norms are. Now let's quickly hit some common cultural misunderstandings. Mistakes learners often make by applying their own norms.
Oh, there are many potential pitfalls. A huge one is that direct, literal translation of expressions from your mother tongue.
Like the give me the report example.
Exactly. In some cultures, that direct imperative might be perfectly normal, even polite in its efficiency. But in English, as we've discussed, it sounds incredibly rude, demanding, lacks respect for autonomy.
Politeness isn't just literal translation.
Not at all. What's truly illuminating here is how often politeness is conveyed by adapting to the target language's specific idiomatic expressions of courtesy. So instead of literal translation, you use, "Could you send me the report when you have a moment?" Another common error. Literally translating a greeting like, "How are you doing?" from certain languages might yield, "Are you well?"
Which sounds
Overly formal, maybe a bit awkward, or could even imply you're concerned about their health, rather than offering a casual, polite greeting. These seemingly small linguistic choices carry significant cultural weight.
Okay, what's another big misunderstanding?
Not grasping different cultural concepts of time. We touched on this with France, but it varies hugely and has profound practical implications.
Like German punctuality versus...
Right. Contrast German punctuality, where 9 a.m. means be ready before 9, and lateness is seen as disrespectful, disorganized.
monochronic time.
Exactly. Time is linear, segmented, versus some polychronic cultures, like perhaps Spain or Brazil, where meetings might often start a bit later. A few minutes delay is more acceptable. Relationships, fluid interaction might be prioritized over strict schedules. Time feels more fluid, multifaceted.
And the implications.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of global business. Understanding these cultural time concepts can literally save you from missed deadlines, damaged relationships, or just constant frustration thinking others are unreliable. It's about respecting different rhythms of work and social interaction, which are deeply embedded in how time is valued and managed.
Crucial for project management, deadlines. Okay, one more common pitfall.
Ignoring formal address, especially in cultures with strong hierarchies. You mentioned the U.S. example. Calling your boss by their first name is often normal. Hey, John, could we discuss the report?
But perfectly fine there. But not everywhere.
Definitely not everywhere. In cultures like South Korea, China, many parts of Southeast Asia, maybe even parts of Europe, depending on the industry, you should almost strictly use titles and surnames or specific honorifics.
Like Director Wang or Manager Kim.
Exactly. Director Wang, could we set up a meeting? Or Manager Kim, I wanted to confirm the schedule. This raises that profound question. How does language directly reflect societal power dynamics, hierarchy, respect? The choice of address is a powerful indicator.
Reflects cultural values.
Deeply. In cultures with strong hierarchy, high power distance, using proper titles, surnames, deferential language shows crucial respect for position, age, seniority. Failing to do so can be seen as highly disrespectful, dismissive, even arrogant, can immediately damage your professional standing and credibility. Small linguistic choice, major cultural implications.
Wow. So the comprehensive key takeaway from all this cultural exploration is that cultural awareness is absolutely as important as linguistic accuracy. It's not an optional extra. It's not.
Not at all. It's the invisible bridge that allows your professional English to truly connect, resonate, succeed globally. Ensures your carefully chosen words are not just understood, but received with the precise respect, intent, and impact you want to convey.
It's the difference between just speaking to a culture and truly speaking with it.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hashtag Outref.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, ready to, engage on the global business stage? It means that truly mastering business English isn't just about sounding grammatically correct. It's about sounding effective, persuasive, and profoundly culturally aware. We've journeyed through these critical skills today, haven't we? Making those stellar first impressions.
Unlink doors.
Contributing confidently, collaboratively in meetings. The nuanced art of crafting polite, impactful emails, and crucially navigating that endlessly fascinating, sometimes surprising world of global cultural nuances in communication.
And we've seen, haven't we, that even small intentional shifts in phrasing, when they're coupled with a deep, informed understanding of diverse global communication styles, they can profoundly elevate your professional presence and the success of your interactions.
Little changes, big impact.
Huge impact. From clarifying your role in an intro, to diplomatically softening a disagreement in a tough meeting, or carefully choosing that email closing. Every single detail contributes to your overall professional image and the ultimate effectiveness of your message.
They're not just isolated tips, are they?
No, they're intricately interconnected principles. When you understand them and apply them together, they build a comprehensive, formidable approach to professional communication.
Okay, and this is where you, the listener, come in. Your active engagement is the final crucial step in this deep dive.
Time for action.
Exactly. Your challenge for this week is threefold. First, actively practice introducing yourself professionally, out loud.
Hear yourself say it.
Yes. Try recording yourself. Hi, I'm your name, and I work as your job title at your company. Then listen back critically. Do you sound confident? Is your articulation clear? Notice how you sound when you project confidence. The more you hear it, the more natural it becomes.
Good first step.
Second challenge. Draft a short business email applying today's polite phrasing tips. Imagine you're requesting info or making a gentle follow-up. Focus especially on those opening and closing lines we talked about.
Like, I'd like to request, or best regards.
Exactly. Try using I'd like to request or would you be able to provide, and close with best regards or kind regards. Then compare it to emails you've sent before. Notice how much more professional it feels, how it reads. That conscious application really solidifies the learning.
Makes it stick.
And third challenge, maybe the most impactful. This week, actively try to use just one new professional phrase or cultural insight we discussed in a real-world conversation.
Just one small step.
Just one. Could be in a team meeting, a chat with a colleague, a networking discussion. Maybe it's trying, from my perspective, I believe, when you share an opinion. Or maybe I see your point, but I have a slightly different perspective if you need to disagree respectfully.
Get it out there in the real world.
Yes. The very act of applying these in a live context, even if it feels a tiny bit awkward at first, will profoundly solidify your learning and build your confidence. Don't be afraid to experiment. Every attempt is a step forward.
Absolutely. And if we connect all of this to the bigger picture, maybe consider this final thought.
Okay.
How might the conscious adaptation of your communication style, even in these subtle ways, influence not just your immediate professional outcomes, getting that project approved, building that client relationship?
But something broader.
Yes.
Right.
How might it influence your broader understanding, your empathy, your genuine appreciation of different cultures around the world? Think about the powerful ripple effect of genuine, culturally sensitive, intercultural communication.
It's more than just business success.
It really is. It's not merely about closing a deal or having a productive meeting. It's about fostering deeper global collaboration, building stronger international bridges, and significantly enriching your own worldview. Each time you thoughtfully choose your words, considering the cultural context,
Yeah.
you're not just speaking English, you're engaging with a complex, vibrant culture, opening yourself to new ways of thinking, connecting on a deeper human level.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the powerful nuances of business English. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep building those absolutely essential professional connections, one confident, culturally aware phrase at a time. We really believe you can master this and unlock new opportunities.
Absolutely. And until next time, continue to question, continue to explore, and always remember that every single interaction is a unique, valuable opportunity to refine your understanding of the world and indeed your place within it.